vasculature, which is all the blood vessels in your body. So you actually have a lot of different kinds of blood vessels in your body. So we'll start off with the arteries. These carry blood away from your body to the lungs, away from the heart to the lungs and the body. So you can remember A for arteries, A for away. So the arteries carry blood away from your heart to the lungs in your body. It's very muscular and elastic, and they branch off into arterioles, which are smaller, but still pretty elastic and muscular. And then the arterioles divide into capillaries. So capillaries, they're actually really thin. They only have a single cell layer, but that's on purpose because these thin one layer cells are used to allow for easy diffusion of the gases and nutrients and waste into the interstitium. So the capillaries will send the gases and nutrients into the interstitium, so the rest of the tissues around the blood vessels, and then the tissues will send the waste back into the blood. So all like the carbon dioxide, any waste like ammonia into the blood. And then the capillaries will empty into venules, which are smaller veins, and then they combine into the larger vessels, which are the veins. And the veins are thin-walled, inelastic vessels that transport the blood back to the heart. So arteries and arterioles will send the blood away from the heart, while the veins and venules send the blood back to the heart. And in order for the veins to send the blood back to the heart, it has to go against gravity, right? So all the veins in your foot, your legs, it has to go against gravity to send the blood back to your heart, and that's accomplished by skeletal muscles. So when you move around, the muscles will contract and they will push the blood from the veins up towards your body. So that's why they recommend like moving around and not sitting still for long periods of time. That's because the blood will collect in your veins if it's unable to send it back to the heart. Okay, any questions on any of the blood vessels? Okay, all right, I'll move on to the next slide. And so Starling Forces. So how does the blood know when to send stuff out of the blood and then bring stuff back into the blood? So that's controlled by the Starling Forces. They help maintain the fluid volume in the heart and then also the concentration of certain solutes in the blood. And this is accomplished by two different opposing forces. So the first one is the hydrostatic pressure. That's the pressure that pushes fluid out of the blood into the interstitium. So this is a pressure that pushes blood out of the blood vessels and into the rest of your body. And that is controlled by the other pressure, which is the osmotic, or also called the oncotic pressure. So that's the pressure that forces the blood, forces the fluid and the water back into the blood, and that's the blood has solutes that draw the water back into the blood. So this is controlled by concentration gradients. So when the osmolarity is too high, the osmotic pressure will draw fluid back into the blood to maintain a more stable osmolarity. So in the diagram below, you can see that on the arterial side, the hydrostatic pressure, the one on top, is greater, which makes sense since the blood wants to send all the fluid back into the interstitium in order to exchange the gases and nutrients with the interstitium, so the rest of the body. And then as you travel from the arterial end to the venial end, the hydrostatic pressure decreases while the osmotic pressure increases. So once it reaches the venial end, the blood will want to draw back some of the fluid because the osmolarity is too high after it sends the fluid from the blood into the tissue. So the osmolarity is too high, so it'll try to draw some fluid back into the blood in order to maintain the osmolarity. Yeah, so these two different pressures, they work in conjunction with each other to maintain a stable solute concentration and fluid volume in the blood. Any questions on this part?
David, do we need to know Fuseli's law for this setup?
Sorry, Opal, you have kind of echo. Can you repeat that again?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Do I need to know Fuseli's law for this setup? You know, where you have that P pressure equals?
No, so you wouldn't need to know like the specific equation for it. You just need to know that on the arterial end, the hydrostatic pressure is greater while the osmotic pressure is greater on the venial side in order to maintain the blood volume and concentration. So you wouldn't need to know, that law is more for like physics and chemistry. You wouldn't need it for this part. Okay. Any other questions?
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Okay. All right, so finally, I'm going to go over the blood that the blood vessels carry. So the blood is actually made up of a bunch of different stuff. It's just not just like red blood cells. So the liquid part, the plasma, is made of a mixture of nutrients, salts, gases, hormones, and proteins. So everything that the tissues may need mix into the fluid in the blood, and that's the plasma. But and then there are also cells in the blood. So the erythrocytes, the red blood cells, those are the cells that transport oxygen using the hemoglobin to bind the oxygen. And the red blood cells use glycolysis for ATP, so it doesn't use up the oxygen that it carries. And then so for the blood, it also has the leukocytes, so the white blood cells, and that's how the blood helps with the immune system. The leukocytes, there's a whole bunch of different kinds, but as a whole, they defend against infection by virus, parasites, bacteria, anything that would want to harm the body. But also in the blood, there are thrombocytes, which are platelets. So those are the little molecules that help with blood clots. So when you have a break in your skin or any damage to your blood vessels, those are the ones that will